Imitation. Let's be honest. That word probably brings a few things to mind. Fakes, copies, maybe even plagiarism, right? But what if I told you that imitation, when you really get it, is one of the most powerful and fundamental engines of creativity in all of art and literature? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this totally misunderstood concept and discover its secret power.
Okay, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to draw a really sharp line between imitation and plagiarism. Then we'll go way back to the source with the Greek art of mimesis, we'll trace the idea through history, and then we'll open up the actual toolkit that writers use. And finally, we'll get to the real heart of it, why any of this actually matters.
All right, let's just tackle the biggest hurdle right out of the gate, the difference between imitation and plagiarism. Seriously, this is the most important distinction we need to make, because these two things, they are worlds apart.
Now, just look at how clearly this lays it all out. Plagiarism, over on the left. Yep, that's exactly what you think it is. It's theft, it's deceit, it's passing someone else's work off as your own, plain and simple. But then you look to the right, at literary imitation, and that's a whole different story. It's an open, respectful homage, it's a dialogue with the past, it's a process of transformation, and, it's an incredible way of learning from the masters who came before you.
And this right here really gets to the core of it. The key word is conscious. Imitation isn't trying to hide its sources, it's practically shining a spotlight on them. It uses them as a starting point, a foundation for a conversation that ultimately leads to something with brand new meaning.
So where did this powerful idea even come from? Well, for that, we need to jump in a time machine and travel back thousands of years. Let's dig into the historical source code of this whole concept, the art of mimesis.
The foundational term we gotta know is mimesis. This ancient Greek idea is pretty much the bedrock of Western artistic theory. And what's so crucial to understand is that mimesis isn't about making a simple photocopy of reality. Not at all. It's about representing the essence of life. The universal truths, the deep patterns of human behavior, not just what things look like on the surface. And nobody explained this better than Aristotle. His big idea was that art imitates life not by being a mirror, but by being a lens. It focuses on what's universally true about our emotions and our actions. So when a playwright creates a tragic hero, they aren't just copying one specific person. They're imitating that universal pattern of pride and downfall that, let's face it, we can all recognize. Of course, an idea this big didn't just stay the same. Oh no. It's been debated, reshaped, and reinterpreted for centuries. So let's take a quick trip through literary history to see how the whole concept of imitation has evolved over time.
This timeline gives us a fantastic flyby. We start in classical antiquity with mimesis. Then, during the Renaissance, artists used imitation as a tool to learn from the classical masters like Virgil and Homer. The Neoclassical era turned it into this very disciplined, rational exercise. But then, the Romantics came along and they pushed back hard, championing raw imagination and originality over everything else. And today? Well, today, we see imitation in all these complex forms like intertextuality and parody. It's this constant, knowing conversation between texts.
Okay, we've covered the what and the why. So now, let's get practical. It's time to actually open up the imitator's toolkit and see exactly how creative imitation works in the real world.
So what can a writer imitate? Well, a whole lot, it turns out. They can imitate nature, like a novelist describing the gritty reality of a city. They can work within a specific genre, like Shakespeare mastering the sonnet. They can imitate the style of an author they admire, maybe trying on Jane Austen's witty prose to learn her technique. They can tackle a universal theme, like love or heroism that echoes through the ages. Or they can get playful with parody. Just think about how the movie Shrek lovingly mimics and completely flips classic Disney fairy tales on their head.
And they do this using some specific literary moves. An allusion is that quick, subtle nod to another work that adds this whole other layer of meaning if you catch it. Adaptation is a much bigger deal. That's reimagining an entire story for a new audience, like turning an ancient myth into a modern sci-fi blockbuster. But emulation. Now, emulation is maybe the most profound. It's about studying a master so deeply that you internalize their skills, not to copy them, but to use those very skills to forge your own unique voice. It's how an apprentice becomes a master.
And this brings us to our final, and honestly most important section. So what? Why does any of this matter? What is the real payoff of understanding imitation for all of us, readers and writers alike?
First, imitation is the engine of cultural continuity. It is the great conversation happening across centuries. Just think about West Side Story. It's a direct, intentional imitation of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, which itself was drawing from even older Italian stories. This chain of imitation doesn't cheapen the art. It weaves this incredible thread connecting our world today to the entire history of human storytelling. It's what keeps our culture alive and evolving.
Second, it is a masterclass in craft. I mean, no artist just learns in a vacuum. Painters go to museums to copy the masters. Musicians learn the classics. For writers, it is no different. You really can't break the rules until you've mastered them. By studying and emulating the greats, like how Hunter S. Thompson literally typed out The Great Gatsby just to see how it felt, writers learn the fundamentals of their craft from the inside out.
And finally, here is the biggest twist, the most important takeaway from this whole thing. Imitation isn't the enemy of originality. It's the fuel for it. True innovation doesn't just appear out of thin air. It comes from deeply understanding what came before, so that you can transform it, or subvert it, or build on top of it to create something that is powerfully and uniquely new. Imitation is the launchpad for originality.
Which leaves us with this final thought. In our modern world, just filled with sequels and samples and remakes, is anything truly original? Or is what we call originality just a more clever, more transformative, and more creative form of imitation? It's a fascinating question to think about. Thanks for watching.